So this morning I woke up to an email that essentially answered my prayer. I was hoping to find some sort of visual representation of the lies that are being spread around the so-called starvation that is taking place in Gaza, or more specifically, how quote unquote Israeli forces, IDF forces, are starving the quote unquote Palestinians, right? That narrative is being pushed in the West without any sort of disregard for the danger that such ideas have. And it is a complete and utter lie. But then again, what would you expect from the mainstream propaganda machine, right? Brought to you by Satan. So anyway, just so happened to have one of my lovely folks out there. I believe she goes by the name of Amy. Shout out to you. She said I could use her name. So shout out to you for sending this video. Now, I'm not always able to get to everything, but when I do have an opportunity to go on my emails, to go on my DMs or whatever it is, and, go through some of these subjects that I'm already kind of, I guess forehead deep into. That's a lot of forehead, by the way. But when I'm in these subjects and I end up having people sending me stuff like this is of absolute value. So appreciate that. Also appreciate everybody who shows love on a daily basis, shows up, shows out. Some people who never have commented before, commenting on stuff. I see you. I appreciate you. I am, as y'all see, I am here doing what I've been called to do and spend 80% of my time doing that and researching and things of that nature. So if I don't get back to you, just know it's not personal. But otherwise, let's get into the situation. Let's really get some insight into, said starvation. But before we do that, I want to start with just a shorter form video that I came across a few days back. And this really will tie things all the way together. So, sometimes you have the informationals like what we're going to get into. And then other times you have stuff like this. I'm going to have to get that sound out of there. There's probably some sort of copyright on that music. So let's go ahead and play this. So here we have two videos of the very same young lady, right? A lot of them have become influencers based off of this conflict in Gaza or in the Gaza Strip. So we have this young lady here, and in one picture, it's like, stop the famine. We're starving here, and they're putting salt into their water. Now, some folks out there would think, wouldn't that actually, technically dehydrate you, etc. I drink salt water every other day, and it's extremely helpful for, I guess, killing off bacteria and things of that nature, especially if you have sinus issues, whatever it may be. It is highly effective. So, surprisingly, it's like the closest thing to full-blown electrolytes. Could be pretty good for you. Anyway, they're putting this salt into water, showing their starvation, obviously, in this nicely manicured space. And then you'll see the picture right next to it that was filmed in the very same month. So as you can see right there, making our starvation meal. And then here on the side, now she is showing us a recipe, how she's making her little wraps. Look at that. The children of Gaza are starving to a point where, she's able to make 3 wraps and do a little tag along video. Because, maybe this is the thing I need to get to again before we get to the main video. I think some folks have not been exposed to actual hunger. I was born in a small African country known as Zimbabwe, where there's, vast amount of malnutrition and things of that nature. And though I was not one of these kids, blessed enough, I would see them. They were called street kids. And you would see the malnutrition. Stuff y'all used to see in these commercials, etc. It does exist, right? And you would see, the inflated bellies or, sunken in skin and things of that nature. And a lot of those tells are relatively obvious. And we don't get that at scale. Like we see these pictures and videos or whatever. And sometimes you see people who are even overweight, dare I say, obese. And yet there's claims of starvation. So again, I just kind of wanted to give y'all that before we get into this. So without further ado, hopefully y'all can hear me. Testing. All right, we're here.
On Sunday, the world awoke to the news of another massacre in Gaza, perpetrated by Israel.
31 Palestinians were as they were trying to get to a humanitarian aid site in southern Gaza. And according to eyewitnesses...
Sorry, that's the other context I forgot to give. It is that there are these stories of, well, the people are trying to get the aid, but they're being attacked by the IDF. In truth, Hamas is trying to intercept, of course. Hamas is responsible for the starvation that is actually taking place. Hamas is responsible for everything that's going on. If you want a simple, wrapped up solution, it's them, because they initiated October 7th. So, well, unless, you're one of it's the Jews type of people, then of course the Jews did it to themselves, right? According to you.
This is on the ground, doctors at local hospitals, as well as the Palestinian Ministry of Health. Israeli fire was responsible for these deaths.
Hamas-affiliated voices on social media immediately claimed that Israel had perpetrated a massacre, that this was some kind of trap to lure Palestinians to their death. And international media ran with that story more or less without any verification.
The problem is, the massacre the media describes never happened. The IDF issued the initial statement denying the reports.
I urge you not to believe every rumor spread by Hamas.
They acknowledged firing warning shots to ward off potential thieves, but denied firing on Gazans at or near the distribution site. Then, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, Israel and US-backed organization managing aid distribution, released security footage from the aid site in question at the time of alleged massacre,
which showed not only that the Israelis had not done this, but that there was no gunfire at the site at all that could be determined.
We need to take a moment to soak some of these points in, right? I'm going to do my best to let as much play out. So I apologize if this is one of those you just want to watch it through. I will leave the link in the description below so you can go watch it by itself. But, when I get into these subjects, it's for the sake of course, the story and what's going on, but also a macro level view of things where it's how we're being propagandized matters. And understanding the power of messaging, the power of propaganda, when a story is more powerful than the actual truth, when a story is emotionalized and is pushed into the masses. It's like, how do we get to a place where the people who were, dare I say, being genocided become the villains in the story? How do the people who October 7th happened to are now the bad guys? Well, that happens through propaganda. It happens through conditioning of the mind. It happens through messaging and emotionalizing of that message. And so, again, this is something that did not happen, but yet multiple media, I'm talking about, there are publishers in America who will, with a fine-tooth comb, go through all sorts of stories. And are you sure we got to verify? But yet they'll take information from Hamas and just run with it. Oh, surely it must be true. Let's go ahead with it. Now, I do believe there's some malevolence, there's some maliciousness, etc. But also it's feeding into a narrative that's already now, the mainstream narrative, and it's going to sell your paper. So I want to address that to say, isn't it incredible how you have the actual footage and people will see that and they will see what happened and they will still want to believe their emotions first.
At the same time, the IDF released drone footage from what they claim to be a different aid distribution site that showed masked gunmen shooting into the crowd of people as they tried to collect humanitarian aid. Gazans on the ground that we spoke to claimed the violence was provoked and perpetrated by Hamas.
Go figure.
المنطقة التي حدث فيها هذا الموضوع. كل الأدلة واللي شفناها بعيوننا بدل على أن حماس هي من تسبب حالة القتل والهلع أثناء توزيع المساعدات قبل أيام اللي صار. ولا أحد يملك سلاح وقدرة على التحرك والقيام بمثل هذا الهجوم على الناس إلا حماس، وما حدا له مصلحة بهذا الهجوم إلا حماس.
What we're really looking at is a full-fledged Hamas counteroffensive at an Israeli effort to undermine the last remaining pillar of Hamas rule in Gaza, the flow of aid into the Strip. Hamas has been able, even under very intense military pressure, to retain domination over the Strip because it controls sole access, really, to that central node of power. So what we've seen over the last year and a half of the war is that the international community would demand that aid be allowed into Gaza. The trucks would come from the Egyptian side of the border, from the Israeli side of the border. They would cross the border, and as soon as they did, masked gunmen would basically climb on top of the trucks and commandeer them.
المساعدات اللي بتيجي إلها ولا عناصرها وللناس اللي بدها إياه ما بهمها أنا واحدة من الناس حماس ما بهمها أن أنا أموت أعيش.
She said Hamas doesn't care if she lives or dies.
عن أنواع من المساعدات كانت في مساعدات.
Oh, I'm so sorry, folks. I realize that my little image is covering the subtitles. Sorry about that.
المساعدات اللي بتيجي إلها ولعناصرها وللناس اللي بدها إياه ما بهمها أنا واحدة من الناس حماس ما بهمها أن أنا أموت أعيش.
كانت عبارة عن أنواع من المساعدات كانت في مساعدات ثمينة وبتغني الأسرة وكانت في مساعدات يعني لا تلبي احتياجات الأسرة. المساعدات التي لا تلبي احتياجات الأسرة كانت تتوزع طبعا على المواطنين وعلى الغلابة طبعا وهيك إشي. المساعدات الثمينة طبعا كانت تنباع في الأسواق من قبل اللي كانوا يحموها ومن قبل الحكومة اللي كانت موجودة في قطاع غزة وكانت تتوزع على العناصر الموجودة اللي هي عناصر الحكومة الموجودة بدل رواتب أو بدل خدمة يخدموها.
But the aid has stopped, and now it's restarting from a pipeline that Hamas doesn't control. The Gaza Humanitarian Fund is an American contractor that's working in coordination with the Israeli military to supply Gazans with food.
So who is feeding these people? Us, the Western world, the U.S. and Israel, the very people who were attacked by. You can't make this stuff up. Sometimes I'm just genuinely floored about this. I'm flabbergasted.
And basic necessities while circumventing the Hamas machinery of theft and extortion. The trucks are coming under American guard now to warehouses, and then they're being dispersed in packages individually by American security contractors. Basically, if you want a package of aid, you have to come up and get it yourself. And we've seen lines kilometers long of Gazans stretching out to receive this aid.
He said Trump feeds us while Hamas starves us. Take note, everybody. Where's the New York Times? Trump feeds us while Hamas starves us. Where are the wokety woke folks yelling free Palestine?
And Hamas, understandably, is launching a full-fledged counteroffensive against this effort because they understand it is truly an existential threat for them.
أولا حماس تفضل أن نجوع ونموت جوع ونعاني كي لا تنجح آلية توزيع المساعدات الأمريكية.
So for the last 3 days, we've seen Hamas attack Gazans who attempt to avail themselves of this aid. We've seen Hamas threaten and blackmail Gazans against seeking out this aid. And we appear to have seen Hamas also staging massacres and then pinning the blame for these massacres on Israel. And the BBC and CNN, all of them should have stopped for 5 minutes to think about it. Which really makes more sense? That Hamas would continue to do on a larger scale what it's been doing for the last 20 months? Or that the Israelis would concoct some convoluted scheme of distributing aid, which is unpopular in Israel, in order to lure Palestinians into a trap so that they could kill them 30 at a time.
The reason why you can sell a narrative like that is because they've already drawn an image in the minds of much of the world, unfortunately, of Israel or the Jew being what Hamas and jihadism actually is. It's the perfect form of gaslighting. All right, let me see if I can pull up the exact quote by Marx. What was it? Karl Marx, blame your enemy, confuse. Let's see. Let's see if this pops up for me. One time. Is that it right there? That's it right there. Okay. This is Karl Marx. And again, it's ironic because there's, these so-called conservatives, more right-leaning individuals who claim to hate Marxism, yet they are in alignment with Marxism on this one specifically. Look at that. Accuse your enemy of what you are doing as you are doing it to create confusion. Accuse your enemy of what you are doing as you're doing it That is Karl Marx. Hamas. Look, colonizer, though you surround them, though you have conquered multitudes of people, from the Berbers in Morocco all the way now to the Brits in England. Look what they're doing. Apartheid state, when there are millions of your own living in their nation, but if one of their own came into your nation, they would have to watch for their lives. Look what they're doing. They're starving us whilst you are literally starving your own people. Again, we have to be so vigilant in these times. I cannot get this point across enough. We have to exercise our discernment muscle more than any other muscle. I don't think anything else is going to matter more as we step into the rest of the 21st century, 22nd century, hopefully not, but the rest of this one for sure. We're going to have to realize that the lie is likely going to spread faster and with more efficiency than the truth has to than the time the truth has to catch up. And so we have to take a step back and watch. Step back and listen and be willing to understand. Step back and to use our reasoning faculties instead of being emotionalized and swept into it, swept into the group thing, swept into the mob. And even worse off, now we got deep fakes and Lord knows how far those things are going to go. You know, grandmas were getting scammed before deep fakes, before AI, off of the worst sort of graphics and, send you my lavo, accent still on the man, and she was getting finessed out of your inheritance. What the hell do you think it's going to be as we step forward? You have to be tapped in.
Time in front of cameras where the international community would see them and condemn them for it. It just makes no sense.
By Sunday evening, media publications began quietly updating their stories, sometimes without issuing corrections. By Tuesday, those stories were gone altogether.
They wrote, Israeli tank 26, Israeli tank 21, Israeli gunfire 31, Red Cross says 21 people were killed in an aid incident, and then, oh wait, they had to correct and take down their entire story, saying we reviewed the footage and couldn't find any evidence of anything.
This has been a chronic problem in reporting from Gaza for decades now, because there really is the fiction that Western media maintains a presence in Gaza. They do not. What they do have are IC relationships with Gazans who are all registered with the Hamas media office. So everything they report basically has to be pre-cleared with Hamas. The credulousness of the international media is why Hamas was able to put its main military headquarters underneath a hospital. It's why they were able to turn every UNICEF or UNRWA school, a hospital, into military base or an opening for a tunnel used by Hamas operatives. That credulousness has shaped the entire conflict and unfortunately has prolonged it. And it doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon.
Okay. So I've addressed the psychological warfare that has taken place, the individual's sort of plight in this, but I want to address something, and this is just where my head is at right now. I would dare say my spirit is at. If you are involved in law and you are an Israeli right now, you are a lawyer, right? Some of the world thinks all of y'all are lawyers, but if you are a lawyer who understands this part of the law, I'm going to give you an instruction right now. I'm going to put this out into the ethos and hopefully it goes somewhere. I don't usually do this, but here we are today. I would start looking at how we can put lawsuits against these American or Western media outlets that have been pushing blood libels. Because that's what this is. If we want to get down to how do we get to a place where people are having their lives taken in America for being Jewish by these so-called free Palestine nut jobs, that right there is going to be more than just probable cause. We know where this is coming from, and we can then hopefully tie the links to say, well, these events are happening because of the media outlets that are pushing lies, disproven even by themselves, but yet they're silent. Did you hear about the New York Times recent publication saying that Israel is not committing genocide? No, you didn't. The reason you didn't hear is because they don't want you to hear that. They don't want you to get the oopsie daisy. They don't come out and apologize about it. But the deed has already been done. So I would suggest, if you're a lawyer, maybe a team of lawyers, maybe you got your own practice, whatever it is, start, if not already, drawing up cases. Every one of these media outlets will be shut down. DJT right now is going to single-handedly shut down the Wall Street Journal. They will be bankrupt if this thing goes all the way to discovery. They will be destroyed, period. He's being real kind and real gentle with a lot of these folks. AOC said something crazy on X that would get her out of here, financially bankrupt. She would need more of our taxpayer dollars to fund her lifestyle. $15 million from just one statement made by George Stephanopoulos. Just one statement calling the president a convicted-ist. That was a lie. And because he said that one thing, Disney, daddy company, parent company, had to pay $15 million, boom, $1 million for lawyer fees. And that's just, again, this is tip of the iceberg stuff right there. So that's my call to action. Anybody, you don't even have to be the lawyer. You can just be involved in the investigative aspect. I said, I got my brilliant researchers out there. You know, folks, you have more power than you understand when it comes to all that's going on right now. I'm just happen to be using mine in the best way I can. This is what I do best. I'm not going to be best when it comes to a multitude. I'm not going to be best in building the buildings, but there's people who will be best at doing that. There's people who are going to be best at, serving up or making food and sending food and doing. There's going to be people who do all of it. Caretakers and, people in our hospitals, all of it. We all have a role to play in this entire societal ecosystem. But that one right there is something that's sitting on my heart right now. Start drawing this up. I'm not calling for any sort of violence. I never would. Even when it may be necessary to defend yourself, that I would say, defend yourself to the very end. But when it comes to this, these companies and organizations are responsible. And I've been saying this even when it comes to the far left and just their own, propagandized minds and what much of MSDNC, The View and the Joyless Reeds and the Rachel Madcows of the world, all these individuals, they are all contributing factors to the minds of Americans. The ever living minds, lost, gone, melted in real time. These people can't think, can't rationalize, and some have been led to actually attempt on the president's life, actually take the lives of Americans. So that's going to be my call to action today. But I appreciate y'all for tuning in. And again, shout out to my people for really doing the work. Research, go deeper, another step deeper, get a true understanding so you don't catch yourself up in the world of emotions that are, going to lead you to essentially be on the true wrong side of history. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now, if you'd like to stay around, make sure to click that little subscribe button down there, or you can show some love by going to the description below and clicking on the button titled Buy Me a Coffee. Leave a little something there, or click on the Cash App. Leave a little something here. Till the next time, peace. Aquarius. Where?
I've been up for hours, I've been up for days, staring at the ceiling, I've been counting strays, I've been in my feelings, I've been out of mind, I've been getting visions of the other kind, I've been up for weeks, I'm in the count of blessings over count of sheep, I can never be the type to limit when it comes to me, I used to be the pleaser for the people, I ain't even